Welcome to this episode of the Down the Pub podcast. We are all back. We've got Gary back. We've got Chris back. We're going to talk a little bit about um, the squad build up. Gary's amazing blog post. It's like one of my favorite times of year is when Gary actually does some work and gets some stuff out there, and it's always an enjoyable read. And Gary's got a great way with words. And obviously, me and Chris had a chance to talk to Derek 2 weeks ago. So we're going to try and keep on top of things and make sure that we're releasing pods as much as we can. So welcome back, gentlemen.
Thank you for having us.
I'm super excited. So, Gary, I did want to kind of get into our two MLS signings, our loan signings, but before I do that, the big news of the week in Wanderer circles and CPL circles is Zach Fernandez going to Valour. So I thought I'd talk to Chris because Chris is uh, good friends with Zach. So, Chris, what did you make of the news when you heard, and how do you think his move to Valor will help him progress to the next level?
There's layers, I think, with every move. We've seen a lot of ex-Wanderers go to different CPL teams, whether you kind of thought that was their first choice to stay in Canada, to stay within the league, or if they go to greener pastures. We've seen guys like Zachary Secunda, for example, try Europe again before coming back home, and we've seen guys leave and never come back, and we've also seen guys try to leave and that kind of ends their career. There wasn't really that fear with Zach. I think we all knew that Zach would find a home. It was just a matter of his ambition mixing with reality. I think we all know, and I think Zach would even probably admit his 2024 didn't quite match his 2023. And I think other guys that have departed, Dan Nimick, Cale Lockery, and you can even throw Lorenzo Caligari's name in there, even though he's returning. We had a lot of pieces of that 2023 puzzle we could have flipped. Derek was wonderful last week, a couple weeks ago, with me and Anthony, really just kind of peeling back that onion, saying, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't when it comes to player transfers. And I think that we have actually done pretty decent as a club. I didn't realize, I went on Wikipedia just to kind of look at it, and outside of Angus's genius at York, we're like number two, I think, when it comes to hand money to money transfers in the league. And if I'm wrong with that, it's we've got to be third. Like, we have to be close. Callum Watson, Sam Salter, Massimo Farron. That's just off the top of my head, and there's probably one or two more as well. Plus, you got to remember deals behind the scenes. With Zach, I think we all agree that even when he's not playing at his very best, he's still an intricate part of the system, getting up and down that line, stretching the field. And then from an emotional standpoint, especially at the grounds, he's the type of guy to pick his teammates up, but we see it all the time. He gets criticized for it from some circles, but I think the general base of us supporters all appreciate how he tries to get us involved when we might be a little bit too quiet. Zach is that kind of guy that I think that if a deal came, you have to weigh the pros and the cons. And I think the club made the right decision to hold on to him. Now, from his perspective, obviously, you want to be making the big deal. You want to be making those big steps up. You want to be fulfilling your career ambitions. And Zach has not been secretive at all about this being the beginning of his career. And I think that we all kind of see that vision as well. We all see that potential in him and so many other Wanderers. But because he was such a big part of the city and a big part of this club, we all wanted the best for him. So long-winded answer, Anthony. Happy. My son looks at Zach like kids look at Messi and Ronaldo. So from the Searle family perspective, we're thrilled. From the Searle family perspective, we're also a little bit sad because we know Zach's ambition and we know the ability he has, and we know the dream he wants to fulfill. And we've got to know his family, his mom specifically, over the years, and getting to talk to them and to hear the passion for the sport and the passion for his career through them as well. You want the best for them. So you kind of look at, like I said at the very beginning, the layers. There's positives and there's negatives to this move. And I'm just really, really trying to lean and look at the positives, especially knowing how hard this kid works, how positive this kid normally is. I mean, we've seen, the negativity, we've seen the red cards, we've seen him wear his heart on his sleeve on that side of the end. But that passion is also what brings the good out of his game, the positivity out of his game, and the good energy out of his game. So we're thrilled that we're going to get to see him two more times, injury spare, knocking on wood right now. And we're also happy that he's getting that opportunity. As I said, there's guys that have taken the risk of free agency and guys that have taken the risk of trying to see where this career can take them, and they hit a roadblock. So for that perspective, I'm happy that Zach has found a home within the league, because it's going to continue and I guess display that comfort he has as well. He's the type of player that when the system is built around him, like I said, he's been a big part of the Wanderers system, even when he's not playing well. Valour plays on that big ass plastic pitch. And we've talked about it over last year specifically. I've only been with you guys for a year, but you guys talked about it a bit the year before too. Different environments, different pitches, different tactics. And I think in a weird way, his style of play is going to work on that turf, that expanded field, a little bit more than it might work at a Wanderers grounds or in Calgary, for example. So long story short, Anthony, bittersweet.
Yeah, he's definitely a player. I totally agree with you there on the pitch. Like, he's definitely a player that can get his head down and just like burst the pace. The limitations of the Wanderers grounds can kind of hurt a player like that too. So it'll be interesting to see him playing week in, week out on that bigger pitch. But it's kind of been a weird off season, because the two players that everybody thought were going to go and move to different leagues and do whatever have ended up staying within the CPL, and it's kind of odd, Gary, isn't it? Like that, we see Dan Nimick and Zach sticking around the league.
Yeah, it is. But I think both players have stuck around the league for different reasons, because taking Zach, for example, when you start to analyze why he didn't necessarily get a move to a higher level, I think you can obviously take into account that in 2024, defensively, he perhaps wasn't as good as he has been. But I also think there's a wider conversation towards what types of players from this country actually make the move to Europe. I'm not talking MLS, I'm talking specifically Europe. What profile of player goes to that part of the world and is successful? It's not a player like Zach. Zach is 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", very fast, technically pretty good, decent cross. There are thousands of players with those qualities in Europe. The Canadian players that make a splash in that part of the world are the physical monsters. It's players who they have a certain physical profile, a certain stature. That's what European clubs are looking for. Like, when you think of a Canadian male, for example, we're just talking about male football. When you talk about a Canadian male, probably one of the biggest males in the world, like country-wise, aren't they? Like, post 6 foot, like big and stocky. So when you're talking about that sort of person, that's who these European clubs are looking for. They're looking for that physical profile mixed with players who also do have a decent technical level. And I think when you think about like a Bustos and a Zach Fernandez, those sorts of players, I don't think they're necessarily suited to Europe, and they should be looking more at MLS Next Pro and then MLS USL, that sort of route instead, in my mind. With Dan is kind of that physical profile, and he is technically good. So he's a completely different question. I don't think it's any great secret that he was close to a move to Tampa. Derek told the story on your podcast. I don't think he mentioned Tampa, but he certainly told the story of how at the end of the season, they strongly got the impression from Dan that he wasn't going to come back. So they moved fast in TMG. I think that's smart recruitment. I think that's good forward planning. That's acknowledging that a player isn't coming back and replacing them as quickly as possible. That's absolutely fine. From Dan's perspective, though, I don't know why it didn't work out with Tampa. I don't know why it didn't work out with another US-based club. I think that's certainly where he wanted to be. And then you get to the point where those things haven't quite worked out and you've got a choice. You can either, for him, maybe move back to England, play non-league, pick up a second job, or you can say there might still be something here. So I'll stick to the CPL. I'll right the wrongs of my 2024 season, which wasn't good, and I'll go again. And I hope for Dan's sake that happens, because I mean, we saw a wonderful player in 2023, and I think mentally he needs to get right, because he's a player who, when their confidence has taken a bit of a hit, you can tell like the technical clarity isn't there. His decision making with passes is a split second off. His decision making with where he's going to push his first touch it's just slightly off. It's like at this level, it's like these little marginal errors, these little marginal reasons for not performing at your best, and that really affected him last season. So yeah, I hope he rediscovers himself this year, and I hope he does get that big move, because I like him. I like him as a person, quite frankly, and I yeah, I wish the best for him.
Yeah, it's kind of funny though. Like whenever I thought about him going to, the talk of him going next level, it's just kind of big buzzword, I guess. But I always thought, like is the USL that big of a step up? I don't think it really is. I think it's on a kind of like maybe a little bit more than the CPL, but I don't think it's that crazy
I
of a
think
big step up.
infrastructure wise, there's more variety. I think Anthony. So I think that's the draw. So like a club like Tampa, if I'm not mistaken, they're either part owned or owned by the Glazers, who own Manchester United, own Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So there's money there. There's infrastructure there. There's support there. And there's history too. The Tampa Bay, I believe they call the Mutiny. I pronounced if I'm pronouncing that wrong, I apologize. They're one of the MLS founders, and there's just that core there. There's that stability there, kind of like how Mo Omar has talked about how San Antonio, it's just shocked him how the soccer culture in that city far exceeds the expectations when you go to a town. And Halifax is like that too in a weird way as well. But we're so fresh on the scene that we don't actually have the quote unquote reputation yet because we kind of still have to build it. But I think that that's what it is, Anthony. Is there's clubs in the USL that are near MLS quality when it comes to infrastructure, not so much to pay, but some clubs aren't horribly far behind if they want to spend that kind of money. So I think that's kind of what it is, Anthony. Is it's more of a Wild West, which can create more opportunities. There's more opponents, so there's more opportunities, more eyes. I think that's kind of the draw for the USL, and I don't want to say over the CPL because we've seen guys go and come back. We've seen guys again go and stay, and we've seen guys go and fail. So I think that that's kind of what it is, Anthony. Is it's just kind of more variety, more options, maybe more paths out than the CPL has to offer.
So, Gary, this one's for you. So, Zach's moved on. As Chris said earlier on, he's a major part of the structure of our team and how we played the last 2 years under Patrice. So he's gone. So, who do you see filling the void? Like we brought in Adam Perlman, who's technically a central defender, I guess, but he can play right back. So, do you see him coming in to fill that space, or who we brought in? You see somebody who's going to take that slot, or are we going to change? Do you think we're going to change tactics with it because of who we brought in?
Yeah, I think on paper it will be Adam Perlman, who we just got from Toronto on loan, because without getting too heavy into the tactical stuff, I know Derek kind of alluded to this anyway, but the way we play defensively, we do end up with a central back three a lot of the time. So on paper, I imagine our back four will be Wes Timoteo left back, Nassim Mekadesh left centre back, Thomas Moyer right centre back, TMG right centre back, and Adam Perlman right back. So that's the starting back four. But as we all know, and we've talked about a million times on this podcast, as soon as we're in an attacking phase, Wes Timoteo will bomb up the wing and become a left winger, and then we'll have a back three. And it will be Nassim Mekadesh left centre back, TMG central centre back, and then Adam Perlman tucked in as a right centre back. We lose the ball, the other team's attacking, Wes drops back in, and we're back to that flat back four again. So I see it operating that way. The only slight limitation I see with that is I worry it's going to make us predictable if teams always know we're going to have an attacking fullback on the left side. So Patrice and his coaching staff, which I'm sure they're already doing, will need to work out a way where our right back still, on some days, can offer an attacking threat just to keep teams guessing. Because otherwise, they're always going to know, okay, we're going to attack down their left side because that's where the space is. But if we do have a more attacking person to play at right fullback, and that might be someone in the current group who we've never thought of in that role, like a Clement Bayer last season, I think we saw him coming in as a winger, and then before we knew it, he was one of like our best players as a right back. So could that happen? Could someone be repurposed there? But yeah, I do think structurally we're going to look fairly similar in that we do usually end up with a back three. But yeah, I see Adam Perlman being kind of the right back if we're playing that way, / right centre back.
Yeah, I think last year with the way Zach played, Wes never really got that chance to go forward as much as he'd like to. You know it's in him, and you know he's got that instinct to kind of bomb forward, as you said. Whereas when it was constantly Zach doing it, you kind of lost that with him because he was always looking to have to sit back. So we might see more of the Edmonton Wesley Timoteo this year because he's obviously going to get that opportunity a bit more to push forward, which I'm pretty excited about. It kind of gives us another option. So Chris, were you kind of a lot of times the people coming in from the MLS are kind of like they're either like not being used by their parent club or they're like literally at the start of their footballing journey. Are you surprised at the quality? Like, because these two guys that we brought in, Perlman and Biello, like they've both been in the first team, and like Perlman was an under 18 All Star when he was playing. So are you surprised at the quality of loan signings we've been able to bring in?
A little bit, yeah. And I think it's kind of a league wide thing. I think that the respect of the league from the MLS clubs has improved. I think there's more of a dialogue there. There's more of a trust there. I think at the beginning, we tried to kind of be competition. And I think now that we've moved into year 5, year 6, year 7, we can't live without them almost in a weird way. I hate to put it that way, but like, I think that the relationship has kind of loosened up a little bit where the MLS and the CPL can both scratch each other's backs, specifically the Canadian clubs in the MLS, but we'll say the MLS as a whole. I think that has kind of given us an opportunity as the Wanderers, but I think as the league as a whole to bring in quality players that younger, particularly, but we had a Jordan Peruzza here. Also Di Rosario's son in net. He comes from an MLS background, like he's not with the first team or really in the vision for the first team at the moment, but that relationship that we already have with those MLS teams, we've had to have triggered it to bear fruit. It only makes sense the way the salary cap is structured and the way that there are those under 21 options in the MLS that aren't going to get those first team minutes there. It almost seems like a sensible free move that I'm kind of surprised we as a club haven't really jumped on more so over the last few years. But again, that's the relationship. It's grown over time. And I think that that's what we're seeing this year, Anthony. So to kind of like answer your question, I'm not so much surprised as much as I'm not surprised that this quality is coming to the league. I am a little bit surprised that we're getting it here in Halifax. The bigger clubs in the bigger cities, Vancouver's, your Torontos, your Ottawas, for example, these young talents might want to go to an opportunity like that, but the parent club may also want the player to go to an opportunity where there's less distractions aside from the more playing time. And from a club perspective, I think both moves make sense on paper and in factuality. As a supporter base, we've struggled over the last couple of seasons prior to Patrice, even with Stephen Hart, over the lack of urgency with these under 21 minutes. And we know that loans are limited, I believe, to only 1,000 minutes. So that right there in itself, you're not forced to play these kids to maybe meet a quota from the parent club as much as you're actually putting these kids in an opportunity for us to meet our quota with under 21 minutes, which then reciprocates to the parent club getting the development out of the player. So I think that this is a glimpse into the future. It's a shrewd spending situation, financially speaking, and in terms of kind of the clauses and the conciliations of the deal. We don't know what agreements there are. From what we understood behind the scenes, there was an agreement between the Wanderers and Jordan Peruzza. So like even when he wasn't in good form, it kind of seemed like we were throwing him on just to kind of meet some sort of game minimum that we were supposed to meet, and to meet those things also keeps the relationship positive. So this Perlman deal potentially may have come from the good relationship we had from the Peruzza deal in the past. So yeah, another long-winded answer, Anthony, but I think that I'm not so much surprised at the quality of the player coming to the league, but I am a little bit surprised that they're here in Halifax and very, very excited.
Yeah, me too. I think it's sorry, go ahead, Gar.
Can I just jump in with some clarity on that? Because Chris, I used to think that as well, exactly what you just said, and I actually asked someone if that was the case, and they said it's not, which was really surprising to me because I felt like we were also doing that with Jordan Peruzza. But when we bring these MLS loan players in, there's not a contractual obligation. who knows about how them conversations go? I'm sure there's some sort of assurance that they will play, but it's not contractually binding. Just
So I know I kind of pissed you off, Gary, because you have to rewrite your blog a little bit when these two guys come in. So in terms of Biello, like, do you see him? We think that Perelman's going to get some play time because we need a right back, but Biello obviously, like, we're a little bit heavy in midfield again. So where do you see him fitting in, and what do you think he's going to get in terms of game time?
I went on a bit of a journey finding out about Biello because, as I'm sure everyone listening to this knows, when you search his little name on YouTube, there's not a lot out there. There's a couple of little short videos of his debut and stuff, but in terms of those shitty highlight packages with some shit rap song playing over the top of it, doesn't exist for the boy. I don't know whether his dad, like with all his experiences in the game, was like, nah, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't have clips from you playing the fucking car park in under 16 football as a way of getting scouted. It's not worth it, mate. So there's nothing for him. So I went on to the Impact subreddit and I was like, hi everyone, I'm a Halifax Wanderers fan. Can any of you tell me if he's a good player or not?
The things you do for this club, Gary.
And like crickets, mate. Like there was a couple of people like he played like 6 minutes for us. What do we know? I was like, well, do none of you watch your under 23 team? Fucking Egypt. So that was like a no-go. And then I looked in a couple of other places. I ended up finding, the Canada Soccer Forum. I just searched his name on there, and there's actually a thread about him from like 3-4 years ago up till now of Impact or FCCF Montreal fans, sorry, talking about him and what he can do, etc. So that was really informative. That's basically all I know about him from reading that. The other interesting thing was him. If you look at his heat map on SofaScore, he looks like a right winger, and I don't know well, I do know now, but I didn't know why he looked like a right winger, but it sounds like it's using the data from the Canadian Championship game. And I think Montreal just wanted to crowbar him in anywhere to give him minutes. So they played him kind of wide right for most of that game. I think that's what happened anyway. But I don't necessarily think that's what he is. If you look at his Canada under 20 games on Transfer Market, he's usually a centre midfielder. I sort of see him as a Lorenzo depth player because from what I've read, he's kind of a short, snappy passer. He's not particularly risky or ambitious with his passing. So from a profile perspective, you'd expect him to be Lorenzo depth. However, if you read the article on the official website after he signed, Patrice very, very clearly alludes to the fact that he wants to see him develop the more attacking parts of his game. So that makes me think maybe we're going to use him as more of a box-to-box 8 as Isaiah Johnson depth. I think he'll be one of those two. I don't think he's a nailed-on starter, but I think throughout the season he'll see minutes in one of those two midfield roles.
Wow, that's interesting to know. Like, it's kind of a big ask for somebody to step into the Lorenzo role. So no pressure, young man. We had Derek on, and he was obviously talking about how he thinks that we're going to be changing our style of play, where, like, we kind of got rid of a couple of the tens that we had, where we had like a lot of players who want to do the same thing. So do you see, as a question for both of you, do you see the team, the way that we play, changing now with who we brought in terms of attacking options? Because a lot of times I felt in the last few years that we become very predictable at times, and it's always taken something special for us to crack a goal in, or you know what I mean. So do you guys think that we're going to change the style of play that we have, and who do you think is going to be the biggest catalyst for that?
I do, yeah, I really do. I think our principles will remain the same, and I think like our game model will remain pretty similar. But in terms of the types of players we've got now, I think it was really clear towards the end of last season that we had an attack full of facilitators. We didn't really have anyone interested in end product. We just had players who wanted to like tippy tappy around the box, nice looking number 10s, short passes, creative, kind of street football, but we had no one who actually wanted to finish it. Like I have a guy. I wanted to find out some like underlying metrics midway through last season, and I put a tweet out saying, "Can anyone help me out?" And now I have a guy who shows me these like Y Scout underlying metrics. Last season in league history, we underperformed our expected points. So that's basically figured out by looking at your expected goals versus your expected assists and then doing some equation. So we underperformed our expected points by like, I can't remember, like 13 or 14 points, I think it is.
Jesus Christ.
Which is an unbelievable amount to underperform it by. So what does that tell you? That tells you that systemically and structurally, we have a way of playing that gets us into these positions and prevents the other team from getting into these positions, which should mean we're second or first in the league. Like if we'd have met our expected goals and goals against, we'd have finished second or first in the league. So I don't think you can reinvent the wheel, because a lot of things we were doing last year was right. But if you're not actually scoring those goals or stopping those goals from going in, you have to look at individual errors and you have to look at talent. And I think that's why, as much as we're upset at your Dans or your Kale Lockery or Zach going, they were 3 of our 4 back 4 last season, a back 4 that conceded 43 goals and conceded far more goals than the expected goals against should have suggested we did. In attack, I think we just, and midfield as well, I think we're focusing on athletes now. And it's something, again, us 3 all talked about this on the podcast last season. And like, it's a simple game, isn't it? Like, you can normally see what's missing, and we were clearly missing runners. So by kind of trading in more tippy-tappy players on the exterior of the pitch for sprinty wide forwards, okay, now we can threaten behind the opposition defense, not just in front of them. So that's we're like unlocking a new skill. We can go over the top now. Last season, we could not go over the top because Sean Ray wanted to cut in, Massimo Ferrin wanted to cut in. Now we have 2 players who want to go on the outside and sprint over the top. So that gives us a new tool. In Isaiah Johnson, we've suddenly gone from having kind of like quite a plodding, tidy, but slow midfield to now having like a space eater who eats space. He runs box to box. He covers ground. So that's going to give us another look. That allows us to not be as vulnerable in transition periods because we've got a midfielder that can actually cover back. We haven't got poor little Lorenzo kind of running as fast as his little stumpy legs will take him, which isn't very fast. I love him. He's my favourite player, you know that, but he can't track back very well. But now we have someone like Isaiah Johnson who can do that. So I think the structure's still there. Patrice's vision and the way he wants to play is still there. But on paper, at least, we've just added athletes, and we've added defenders, like real defenders like TMG who want to defend. And hopefully the alchemy's there, but we won't know for another couple of months. But yeah, on paper, I think much the same, but also lots of little differences as well.
Can I ask you a question, Gary? Because I can't add much. You pretty much knocked out everything I have on my bullet points here, pretty much, especially like,
sorry, mate.
Going over the top, or like actually like sending through balls, like 2 of the things that we just completely lack with Thiago, and Ryan Telfer showed his quality last year as well, running onto the through ball. I kind of think that that's the basis of like the final third. But my question to you, Gary, and it's kind of funny because we talked about how over the last 2 years, Patrice has built his system into us being the protagonist. And I look at what we have on paper, who we've let go, who we've signed. Are we going to maybe show more of like a counter-attacking base? And I know that sounds crazy because then we're going back to the Stephen Hart era of letting the other team move the ball around and then try to get them on the counter. And I don't want to see that kind of football because we know as Wanderers supporters, our base as a general whole will take entertaining football so long as, you know, the results are in or around there. We'll support a loser if it's fun, more or less. Sometimes it's not fun. Are you worried that maybe we're going to revert back to maybe being that we'll let you have the ball and then we'll counter you with our athletes? Or do you think we're going to use that athleticism to win those 50-50s? I just don't see possession this year as much as normal, but maybe you can talk me off that cliff.
No, I see what you mean completely. I think if you look at Patrice's reference points as a coach, I think philosophically and ideologically, he could never be a counter-attacking coach, to be honest. I think he is too in love with that sort of Barcelona 2008, 2012 era that way of playing football, that very Spanish style of football, that I think he would be sacrificing a lot of his principles to become like a sitting in, like, you know how Pacific played against us in that playoff game where they just kept on giving the ball back to us because they were like, "Now we'll just sit in, we're tired." Don't see him ever doing that, but I do see what you mean. But when you look at the players that allow us to play that way, I think if Lorenzo's still on the pitch, it's a huge waste of resources to turn us into a counter-attacking team, isn't it? Because he's just like, he has no, like, I think if you stuck Lorenzo in cavalry, for example, he would be unrecognizable as a player we know and love because we are so beautifully set up to feed into his strengths. But I will say there are days where you do need to play like that, right? And like an away day at Forge where you've got heavy legs and you do need to sit in and spring the counter attack. And now we do have players that can do that on a day like that, like Johan Bai is rapid. Jason Bambula is very fast. Telfer's faster than he looks. So we've got these players that can do that now. So yeah, it's just about giving us a different face, isn't it?
So I'm not sure Lorenzo would appreciate you calling him Stumpy Legs on his birthday, but good man, Gary.
What's stumpy in French? How do you say that?
The stump.
Mate, don't let that nickname catch on.
It's too late, man. It's too late. I can already see a banner being hung from the
The
stands.
stump.
Yeah. Chris, this one's for you because Gary stole the last question all to himself. So it was announced. Derek alluded that we're going to the UK for preseason. So what did you think of the opponents that we got? Ipswich, Norwich, which kind of makes life easy because the two of them are beside each other, and Fulham. So it's kind of sad that they're all behind closed doors, though. Huh?
Very much so, because my big question is it going to be a core of the under-21s? Are there going to be any first teamers? I know they spend a lot of behind closed door stuff, working with first teamers on set pieces and stuff. So, like, are they going to play against some Premier League guys on Ipswich, for example? We got a taste of that last year at the Wanderers grounds. It was only the under-21 programs, but goodness gracious, it was fun to just kind of see and feel that quality of player. Even if they'll never play in the Premier League, you know they're going to play at a high level in Europe. You know that even if they stay in the English football structure, championship quality type players. And it was also really cool to see how our Nova Scotian boys, I mean, it was an Atlantic core in general, but specifically how some of our Nova Scotian boys were able to go toe to toe. The score lines weren't exactly on our side the entire time, but entertainment wise and in terms of, like, just matching the quality, it was a good litmus test, I think, for what the Wanderers were trying to do and where they're trying to go. And I think, Anthony, the fact that Matt and co have built these relationships this fast is just another testament to, even if there's struggles and shortcomings on the field, off the field, things are falling into place. Things are going right. We're not seeing a lot of the other teams in the league doing this. And, you were talking about USL earlier. We don't see a lot of the USL clubs even playing MLS clubs during the offseason. They're playing university select squads or NISL teams or something like that, right? They're not playing against higher quality teams. So it's kind of, he broke it down really wisely. And I've been explaining it to people over the last couple of weeks that don't listen to our show, Anthony, specifically, that part about how we're closer to there than any club in North America. And it's the truth, especially when you go by time zone. We're closer to England than anybody. So to have that relationship grow as fast as it has the last couple of years, to now see it tangibly speaking, I know it's behind closed doors, but there's going to be other clubs in England that are going to see this. Like, who's this Canadian club coming over? It's going to continue to build those relationships. It's going to continue to build that social infrastructure that's just as important as physical infrastructure, for the battle for the stadium and for the battle for permanency that we want for the club in the city, for us to be able to build that permanency in the international football scene as a whole. I'm as excited for that as I am for the actual matches. I think this is a huge step in the right direction for the club. And as we know, the league are a band of brothers. So the other owners of the league too are going to be learning from Derek on how to create this networking and how to build it. Our Vancouver and Pacific looking at potentially creating an Asian market, for example. We've already seen Ottawa and York dipping into the Central American market. So we see the league expanding and spreading its wings. And I'm glad that we're kind of beating cavalry to the punch with the UK, because you'd think with Tommy and all the connections that they have, that they would have been kind of the front runners to creating that bridge. But here we are.
I think it's more. I think with Tommy though, and just because of where cavalry is, it's a long trek for them to go all the way over there. And I think for us, as Derek said, like it just makes sense for them to be able to get into the academies and the facilities that these guys have. You know, it's going to be such a great learning experience for everybody involved. You know, it's like, you know, obviously as Atletico, although I get to do it every year with Atletico Madrid, and you see the pictures of them with Griezmann, and Griezmann obviously thinks that they're just like fans, or they're there on a a charity day out or something. But you know, I just think it's like such a great thing just to be even around. Like you saw how much Derek was excited and happy for Thiago being able to train with West Ham and stuff like that, and it just lifts the profile of the club so much because, you know, we're starting to see people start to recognize the league. You know, when players pop up playing in Scotland, or, you know, even with I don't know if you ever know, if you classic football shirts online, they always have like some of the Canadian Premier League ones that they kind of push them a lot. So we're starting to get there, and this kind of stuff I think really helps push the profile of the club. And I think it's awesome. You know, I think it's, you know, even if the guys, if this is their level, they'll always have those memories of being out of playing at like Ipswich. Like Gary has his memories of playing like at Villa Park and stuff like that. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'm so happy for it. I think it's gonna be awesome. So yeah, like I think we're looking good this season. I think like I'm very impressed with the transfer business we've done. Obviously, everybody was upset that we lost Dan and Zach and all that kind of stuff. But I think as time goes by, because it's the nature of football, you kind of just learn to get on with it. And I think it would have been better for all if those two guys had been able to move outside of the CPL, so we wouldn't feel as kind of shitty about it, I think. But I'm really happy that we brought in TMG. I think it's a great replacement, as Gary alluded to, that he gives us a more of a solid defensive hold back there in the back line. And we'll see how Perelman does. We might even see another. Are we full up for the squad now? Is that everybody, or do we have any spaces left?
It's gotta be close.
Yeah,
Goodness.
I guess it just depends if like clubs are still talking to each other, so there's always the chance that someone leaves and we bring someone in to replace them. I'm sure those conversations are happening, but I think we're pretty close now, unless that happens.
I'm counting 23 registered, and that's not including the two U Sports players.
Oh wow. Okay, so yeah, we're pretty much there.
So
I'm happy. Like I think I say Johnson was a great signing too. So I think we got our business done pretty early, and you know, it's we kind of know where we're at, and I think a couple of weeks in England will do them all the world of good. So just before I let you go, Gary, I do want to ask you. We haven't really heard much. Jordan Feliciano was always obviously like a bit of a character, and he kind of, you see him at training, and he was very expressive in the way he went about his business on the training field. Obviously, I haven't been up to training. I know you've been there a couple of times. So how is Giovanni's style any different to the way that Jordi goes about things?
Yeah, he was doing a lot of defensive work when I was at training, Gio.
Gio. Sorry.
Gio. Oh, that's what the players are shouting when they're talking to him. Gio.
Wow. All right. Gary's best bud.
Yeah, I was out with Gio and Les Stump the other day, digging out with the boys. Yeah, no, he was working with the defenders a lot. I think that's his background, and where's he from? He's from Italy.
Yeah, such a stereotype, isn't it?
Massive stereotype. Yeah. So he's like a big Inter Milan fan, loves defensive football. So it's just the club being proactive, isn't it? It's recognizing we let in far too many goals last season. We needed to bring someone in who could focus almost not entirely on defense, because I'm sure we'll do other stuff, but focus on the defense. And when I was watching, he was doing a lot of work on kind of keeping the line. When do you go and engage an attacker? When do you drop back in? When do you move forward as a unit? When do you drop back as a unit? All of those little details that I think, like us as just football fans, we don't necessarily ever pay attention to that stuff. But if you've got that coach's mind, that's what you care about. That's what you look at. And I could see that with him. So I think he's going to take the defensive side. We've also there was a lot of new staff there. They've got, I can't remember the guy's name. He looks like Kieran Culkin, the guy from Nottingham Forest.
Oh, Edwards.
Yeah. So he's doing more of like the stretches and the sports sciences side. Patrice is obviously, he's everywhere as well. Lots of work with the attackers, lots of work with passing drills. And there's Alex Shepherd as well, who's doing a lot of the analytical stuff now. He's kind of the guy of the laptop. So it's a new group, and I think coaching groups need to evolve. You look at even someone like Alex Ferguson. How many assistants did he go through in his time? It's kind of a snake shedding its skin, isn't it? You need to add new ideas. You need to challenge yourself in other ways. And I'm sure Patrice and Geordie got to the point where they could finish each other's sentences and they knew exactly what each other thought about what to do in moments in the game. But sometimes you need a different idea and you need someone else who's going to give you a different way of looking at things. And that seems like what they've done to me.
Yeah. I can't wait to actually try and get up there and just see, because as I said, like Jordy had his own way of doing stuff, and it'd be kind of interesting to see how the relationship is with Pat. Obviously, like Jordan's been Pat's right-hand man for a few years now, so it'll be kind of different just to see how things work that way. So, boys, we got the kit launch on Tuesday.
You going?
Got to try my best to get there. See how I feel. And,
might be a few familiar faces in the kit launch video.
Oh, fucking hell! I you know what? It's like it's I don't know.
You got a face for the podcast.
I know, that's all of it. Yeah, that's exactly. That's why we don't do video ones. I got a face just for radio. So, yeah. So and
are you going? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to try my best too. I'm going to see.
Cool.
Yeah, I am. I'm off next week, so I'm hoping that.
I booked Wednesday morning off, so I could have a few bevies. Do you want a beer afterwards?
I'm not supposed to after my gallbladder being removed, but
shit, yeah. Is that like you're not supposed to drink on that? No.
They didn't say anything, but like I thought it might be prudent to kind of take it easy for a little bit and like try and my goal is St. Patrick's Day, so.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Are you still on the painkillers?
No. Like
okay.
Like they only had me on like extra strength Tylenol anyway, so it wasn't anything.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't anything too crazy, and I stopped taking them like last Thursday. So
nice.
you should do like do a little public service announcement to your listeners that you can be like an ambassador
for gallbladders.
Yeah. What are the warning signs? What should we be looking out for?
Well, if you find yourself getting like really fat and out of breath. No, actually, that's just drinking too much. Honestly, like I just woke up with like just a really bad shooting pain in my stomach, like right across the top of my stomach. You kind of worry yourself that's a heart attack kind of stuff. It's always a good idea to go and get that stuff checked. So like I kind of waited a while, and I was just like, it's just gas. So I was just hoping that would be like just a big dirty fart and I'll be all good. But it didn't work. So I had to, poor Sarah had to like drive me in, and I was like such a crybaby the whole way in. I was just
same, mate.
Every time she hit a bump or every time she stopped at a traffic light, I was just like, "Fuck, thanks a fucking."
Did you turn into what's the guy in Father Ted, the old drunk guy?
Yeah, Father Jack.
Just turned into Father Jack. Oh,
yeah, for
what
fuck's
a
sake.
reference!
Yeah, and then and the worst thing is like because of, I guess there was some incident at the accident emergency a few weeks ago. It's like it's worse than the airport. It's like the TSA are waiting there for you. They go to a scanner. They had the wand and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like so out of it just because I was in so much pain. I just walked past it all, and then like they were trying to push me back out, and I was just like, "Fucking don't push me here, lads." And then like because like I just threw everything in like into my pockets. Like they asked you to empty your pockets, and I was like, I had everything in my life in there. I had like my phone charger, headphone, da da da. So it took me about 10 minutes to go through there.
Never coming out. Tell the kids I love them.
I know, yeah.
They do the surgery right down
I
there.
know, yes. My gallbladder it was my gallbladder just kept going off.
Take my gallbladder.
Oh God, yeah. So I'm going to start a charity, the gallbladder awareness. We're going to be holding the fundraiser soon.
Right, that's it. That's going to be our sponsor for this
Yeah.
season. Find some gallbladder charity.
Well, boys, it's been great getting back doing this. We'll kind of try and keep doing them before the season. Like, obviously, there's only so much news to go around, so we're not going to be probably do these every week, but we'll try and keep on top of it, so we're not like waiting 6 or 7 months like we normally do, and like Gary's blog post, like the once a year thing. But Gary, tell people where they can find the blog, because it's amazing and it's definitely worth checking out.
I'm on a Wix address now, so I don't actually remember the address, but it's, if you just Google From Away's HFX, it should come up pretty high on that list. It's like, yeah, just to Google From Away's HFX and it's there. It's about a 15-minute read, I'd say.
Folks, please. Right foot, please. Time to drink up, folks. Get out. Out to foot.